Hello, my name is Thomas Good, and I'm reporting for the Diamondback News. I'm here to report about PTSD in both veterans and first responders. Both veterans and first responders put their lives on the line each time they put on the uniform. Whether it be suiting up to go into battle or going into a burning building to save someone's life, both suffer from PTSD in some form. In some, it can cause suicidal thoughts, and in some, they appear normal until their brain gets triggered by a stressor from that incident. I bet many of you have heard of PTSD, but don't really know what it is. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder and is a stress and anxiety condition that results from exposure to an overwhelming traumatic event combined with feelings of utter helplessness. Since the 1980s, it has been pointed out that PTSD may occur not only among survivors of severe traumatic events, but also those who help rescue the victims. Members of the fire service constitute a large occupational group exposed to traumatic experiences. For veterans and first responders, it is extremely difficult to live with PTSD. It's been reported that lifetime prevalence rates of alcohol abuse and dependence among men and women with PTSD are approximately 52% and 28% respectively, and that lifetime prevalence rates for drug abuse and dependence are 35% and 27% respectively between men and women. This means that at a minimum, 25% of women and men with PTSD suffer from alcohol abuse or dependence and drug abuse and dependence. Other than drugs and alcohol, a study on combat veterans with PTSD reported that there is an 8% increase in heavy smoking, that means greater than 25 cigarettes a day, between veterans with PTSD compared to combat veterans without PTSD. All three of these can attest to the need for relief in escaping from the pain that is caused by PTSD and associated with it. Even though many of you know that alcohol, drug abuse, and smoking can kill you or cause serious mental issues, veterans and first responders still do it because it's their only way to cope with PTSD. Here's a small clip of a veteran pilot in the Air Force who is now afraid of heights because of the PTSD he got from his missions.
I was very skeptical. I didn't want it. I didn't, but by the time I had finished through the week, the fear of flying, the fear of heights, I went through with that. So he had set up to go over to the Embassy Hotel. And we got there, and when we got on the glass elevator, I turned my back to the door, so I wouldn't have to look out. To some people it may, sound funny and stuff, how could you be? But even though we were only like 5 stories up, I was shaking.
It took us, 10 or 15 minutes of going back and forth.
We tapped through, each one of them.
Until finally he gets there, and he looks over, and he says, I'm holding on here fairly tight, but I'm about 95% done with this.
So he went out there, and it was as good as I could have hoped. He came back a changed person.
Here's a small clip from a fellow news station in which a firefighter speaks about his response from a second alarm fire.
All hands on deck, a 2-alarm fire that injured 7, but somehow everyone walked away.
Now, one firefighter is telling Matthew Smith the injuries weren't just physical.
We got very lucky. We could have had 5 firefighters and a civilian dead like that.
Mike Terrell says it's amazing that everyone that battled this fire lived. No one knows that better than him. He was inside when the building blew up. He was trying to get the owner out.
The last thing I remember is trying to reach out with my right hand to shield Mr. Cutler.
Terrell came to on his stomach. He was dragging himself, crawling to get out. We believe that's him being taken away by an ambulance. But that's not what this story is about. A life can be measured by anything. Seconds, really. Terrell may have gotten out alive, but 36 hours after he left the hospital, his life flashed again.
Don't remember the 6 guys being here carrying me downstairs.
A concussion hit Terrell late. He had to be rushed back to the hospital. He was paranoid, scared someone wanted to hurt his family. As get-well cards were piling up, Terrell was beginning a fight unlike anything this 29-year firefighting vet could imagine.
I know what to do at a fire. I know what to do in an emergency situation. Not having control over my mind is a lot worse.
Fires, crashes.
I rescue 60 supervisor.
The worst of the worst calls. Not just this funeral home, but some as far back as 20 years.
There's a lot of stuff that I thought I dealt with that is resurfacing.
Terrell turned to a counselor. It helped with nightmares, flashbacks, all vivid.
Knowing that it was a little over a year ago that we had one of our firefighters kill himself. So, you know, and who knows what's going through somebody's mind like that.
Terrell isn't sharing this story to scare people. In fact, he's doing better every day. He made it a point to talk about the other firefighters that were hurt. No, Terrell doesn't like the limelight, but he can't do his job right now.
A lot of soul searching lately, wondering why.
So each second he's not on the job, it's tough. But he's using those seconds wisely, thinking up new ways he might be able to save a life.
If there's something that I can do to help anyone that's hurting from that, that's what I want to do.
Turns out is actually suffering from PTSD. He is working through that as well as some physical injuries. John Mallory, he tells me that he will eventually get back to work.
Yeah, very difficult recovery, but good story, Matt.
And Terrell says he is not the only firefighter hurting.
In fact, he did want us to talk about another man, firefighter, who's hurting badly, that we talked about at 6 o'clock. You can read more about it at WOWT.com.
Both clips show that it's hard for veterans and first responders to cope with their PTSD and that there's a growing need for advancement in treatment. Due to the advancement in technology, treatment for PTSD is growing and allowing for easier and less straining ways for veterans and first responders to receive treatment for their PTSD. One example of this is advancement in technology is through virtual reality. Virtual reality integrates real-time computer graphics, body tracking devices, visual displays, and other sensory input devices to immerse someone in a computer-generated virtual environment that changes in a natural way with head and body motion. Virtual reality exposure is proposed as an alternative to typical image exposure treatment for Vietnam combat veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. A patient who was exposed to two virtual environments, a virtual Huey helicopter flying over virtual Vietnam and a clearing surrounded by jungle. The patient experienced a 34% decrease in clinical rated PTSD and a 45% decrease on self-rated PTSD. This means that the intensity of the PTSD that the soldier experienced decreased by 30%. This is just many of the ways that technology is helping to aid the treatment of PTSD. This is Thomas Good from the Diamondback News. Have a great day.